Hello, today's poem we're considering is This Is Just to Say by William Carlos Williams. Before we start, if you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, it would be greatly appreciated if you would. Thank you so much. I have the poem here, so let's start. I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Forgive me, they were delicious, so sweet and so cold. This Is Just to Say is a perfect example that great poems can be short and sweet, if you pardon the pun. Despite the poem's relatively short length, there's plenty to unpack in it. So let's start. In the poem, the speaker asks his partner to forgive him for the selfish act of eating plums intended to be eaten later and shared. The plums had been stored in an icebox, a box or cupboard used to keep food cool. The poem is structured like a note, long and narrow. The author's frank admission surprises us and makes us smile as we consider how the intended recipient will react. The speaker's frank admission is made powerful through the use of plain language. He does not attempt to excuse his selfish behaviour other than that they were tempting and delicious. This is just to say they were delicious, so sweet and so cold. Using simple vocabulary throughout makes the poem easy to access and, like the plums, it tempts us to reread it several times. The final stanza invites us to share the sensation of eating the plums, evoking our sense of feeling, cold, our sense of hearing through assonance, the long vowel sounds, delicious, sweet, cold, and our sense of taste, sweet, allow us to imagine the speaker savouring the plums he has taken. In the last two lines, so sweet, so cold, the speaker uses diacope to repeat the word so 2 times, ultimately emphasising just how satisfying it was to eat the chilled plums. This instance of diacope is especially prominent because it accentuates the sibilance that also appears in the final 2 lines, so sweet and so cold. Sibilance being the repetition of the S sounds, as in the snake hisses. Using these techniques recreates the speaker's illicit savouring of the plums and force us to share the guilty pleasure, especially if our mouths begin to water, which after reading these lines often happens. Euphony, the musical quality the sounds words make, especially when placed together, accompanied by the poet's use of sibilance in words like plums and icebox, creates a tactile sound that reflects the pleasure the speaker seems to have derived from eating the plums. I have eaten the plums that were in the icebox. The poem's casual conversational tone is created through the use of enjambment, run-on lines. For example, and which you were probably saving for breakfast. Writing I have eaten the plums, the present perfect tense, rather than I ate the plums, creates an immediacy, and we share the moment with the speaker. Like stanza 3, this immediacy places us in the middle of the action, accessories to his misbehaviour, witnesses to his confession. His written confession uses apostrophe, an address to something unliving or an absent person. It indicates the person he addresses is not present, either away from the house or in another room. It is meant to be read by them later when he has gone. His decision not to tell the other face to face may show some reluctance, possibly because he is ashamed, or likely because he anticipates a row. In line 9, we question the speaker's sincerity. Asking for forgiveness is not the same as saying sorry. The poem is capable of multiple interpretations. It could be a simple apology to his wife. Others compare it to the story of Eve, partaking of the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the Bible. At the same time, it could be simply a celebration of finding delight in simple, small things. The tone is humorous as we smile at the speaker's sneakiness, cheek, and effrontery, and anticipate fireworks. However, we can't discount that his partner will see the funny side too. Whatever reading you prefer, plums emerge as cherished items that give the speaker pleasure, a sensual experience. Although a selfish act, this enjoyment pushed the speaker to eat the plums even though the other person was saving them. It makes us reevaluate what we treasure most in life. What brings us the most happiness? Material items or the pleasure of the moment? A sensation. It makes us consider whether a shared pleasure is more enjoyable than a pleasure indulged alone. And if so, why? This is just to say, takes place in a domestic setting, likely a kitchen. That the plums were inside an icebox instead of a refrigerator suggests that the poem is most likely set sometime before the 1930s, since refrigerators, fridges, weren't standard kitchen items at the time. Being set in a domestic setting makes the poem easier for the reader to relate to. William Carlos Williams was born in Rutherford, New Jersey in 1883. He began writing poetry while a student and throughout his career as a medical doctor. Returning to Rutherford, where he continued his medical practice throughout his life, Williams began publishing in small magazines, then embarked on a prolific career as a poet, novelist, essayist, and playwright. Williams's health began to decline after a heart attack in 1948 and a series of strokes, but he continued writing until his death in New Jersey on the 4th of March 1963. William Carlos Williams was an influential member of the Imagist movement, popular in the early 20th century. The Imagist movement advocated the use of precise, plain language and vivid imagery. Williams adapted the movement's principles as he sought to invent an entirely fresh and singularly American poetry form, whose subject matter was centred on the everyday circumstances of life and the lives of ordinary people. This is just to say, provides a perfect example. Because of Williams's association with the Imagist movement, it's worth considering This Is Just to Say alongside In a Station of the Metro, a two-line poem by Ezra Pound, whom many consider the founder of Imagism and the father of modernism. It's also worth comparing This Is Just to Say with some of Carlos Williams's famous short poems, including The Red Wheelbarrow. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting and helpful. If you did, please hit the like button below and also the bell so you can be updated when we publish new videos. If you haven't subscribed yet, it would be fantastic if you would do so and greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Also, check out our other videos on writing and textual analysis. Until next time, from Carol and me, write well.